want to thank the U.S.-Ukraine Foundation and Nadia McConnell, who selflessly spent years and decades working for Ukraine, for Ukraine's independence, freedom, prosperity, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. She is inspiration to all of us, Nadia. Thank you. Дякую. And I think that it's stating the obvious that Ukraine is a bipartisan issue, no matter if you're with Brookings or Heritage or Carnegie or you name it. We all care. Why do we care? Why should we care? Well, I was born in Ukraine. My father was born in Dnipropetrovsk. My grandfather was born in Odessa. So we care. There's 1 million of us in America who were born, or parents were born, or grandparents were born in Ukraine. There's another 1.5 million, 1.5 million in Canada that don't vote. They didn't sign the association agreement yet. Nevertheless, in North America, there are 2.5 million people who care about Ukraine and should care about Ukraine. But also as a country, if we are to lead, if we are the leading member of NATO, and Ukraine is right there on the border of NATO, on the borders of Romania, Hungary, Poland,
Belarus,
Slovakia, and Belarus, which is not in NATO. We should care about it geopolitically. We should care about it because there is the Russian naval base in Sevastopol, and we should care because Ukraine is one of the few countries that makes space launchers, that makes some of the largest transportation jets in the world, and has a wonderful industrial base and highly educated population. We should care because Ukrainians who were raised after the independence, as well as those who were raised before the independence, do not want to go back to status quo ante 1991. They don't want to go back to the past and be under the tutelage, under the control of a greater power in something called the Soyuz, the Union, whether it's a Soviet Union or Eurasian Union or Customs Union. In Moscow, when you talk to the Russians, they refer to it as Soyuz, no adjective. And that is scary. That brings back the darkest memories of the 20th century. It brings back the memories even before that, when the Ukrainian language was banned, when the Ukrainian culture was at least frowned upon, and when Ukrainians in the Russian language were referred to as Malorossi, little Russians. Nobody wants to be called little anything, let alone little Russians. Especially when you're not little or Russian, you're Ukrainian. So today, I'm writing in the forthcoming issue brief, a short paper that Heritage will publish today or tomorrow, as does our president, Jim DeMint. We say that the Obama administration was behind the curve, that it did not lead on Ukraine. The administration let the Europeans lead, and there was a split between the Poles, the Lithuanians, and the Swedes, who really wanted Ukraine in the EU first as association agreement, but there are also many who understand that the future of Ukraine is in the EU, and the Germans, the French, possibly the Brits and the Italians, who didn't care that much. So when you don't have the internal consensus, and when the European Union has its diplomacy done the way it's done, then you get the result that you get. And I talked to the very senior administration officials, and I did not hear or see the fire in the belly, the commitment that was there in 2004 when we cared about the Orange Revolution, and when the administration really was focused how to help the Orange forces to win. the matter of fact that after they won, there was a big disappointment, but we're not going to talk about this right now. So what can we do today? First of all, I'm very glad that Secretary Kerry had an unprecedented statement yesterday. You saw the language. He said that he was disgusted with what happened. You very, very rarely see that. And then there was this romantic, beautiful language about the church bells ringing in thank you. The church bells ringing in the smoke of the protest, and you don't find this language usually. But these are words. These are not actions, and words are not enough at this point. You saw the attack of Berkut. I looked up Berkut in the Google Translate. It's called Golden Eagle. It's kind of a strange name to give to something that all dressed in black and looks like space troops from Star Wars. And you saw the violence by Berkut on the 30th of November, and then again night before last. Night before last. We need to do more than just write beautiful press releases. What can we do? First of all, Ukraine is in a terrible economic situation right now. And there is a serious discussion, mostly behind closed doors. Can we or should we link the possible IMF package with the direction where Ukraine is going? Because the majority of the IMF voting rights are in the hands of the United States and the European nations. And for the life of me, I do not understand why the administration says we should not link it. This is about Ukraine's economic direction. This is about Ukraine's economic transformation. The rule of law is absolutely key to how the Ukrainian economy is going to function. It's not only the rates of tariffs that Russia is imposing now or may impose if Ukraine signs the association agreement, and if Russia is serious about the brotherly rhetoric. I heard, many of you may have heard of him or saw him, heard of him, know him, Andrei Shitov, the Russian TASS bureau chief here in Washington. And Mr. Shitov said we're brotherly nations. And I have no reason to doubt it, but brothers do not impose high tariffs on brothers. So why would Russia impose these tariffs on Ukraine if Ukraine signs the association agreement? Question number one. Question number two, why should not we link the IMF package, not just the money, but also the necessary economic reform, possibly under a new government, new cabinet, with technocrats who really know what they're doing and not the Soviet or post-Soviet apparatchiks who are incapable of doing these reforms. So linkage of the IMF package is one possibility. Secondly, for those who are involved in massive corruption and money laundering in Ukraine, the administration officials told me, yeah, Ariel, this is a good idea. We should have done it a year ago. Well, why didn't you do it a year ago? You are people who can do it, who can make it happen. And these investigations can be done by ourselves and by our European friends and allies, just as we are doing it in the case of the Magnitsky List, in the case of other corrupt acts that undermine economic development in Ukraine, cause capital flights, and make business in Ukraine so much more difficult, both for Ukrainians and for Western investors. Next, Ukraine is a party to the Helsinki Accords. And as such, people should not send Berkut and interior forces to beat people up. All these violations can and should be documented, videotaped, and then investigated, and people should be put on notice that if they do violate international law and democratic norms that Ukraine is committed to, there can be consequences for not only for those who wield the batons but also give orders to crack down. And again, Chairman Cardin made a statement to that effect. Thank you, Paneoresto, for sending it to me, and this went into our paper with a quote from Chairman Cardin in a bipartisan way. I think this is pretty much the three directions: economic, rule of law, and diplomatic, that we can pursue. I personally am not sure that the rhetoric about sticking to the peaceful way in the middle of a revolution was the kind of words I would choose, but this is my personal opinion. I think people are sending these signals in a very, very clear way to the administration that is not necessarily using peaceful means to solve the problem. I think that Ukraine is truly in a historic juncture. It is making its historic choice whether to continue in the direction of Europe whole, free, and at peace, or to descend into the Russian orbit. And this is a stark choice, and I hope that both the Ukrainian people and the Friends of Ukraine here in Washington will make the right choice. Thank you very much.